Okay, so I'm actually going through the process right now of putting up an actual like ham radio repeater on 2 meters on a real cell tower. Putting it up on your own land is easier if you have your own stuff because you don't have to really do anything except for the physical work to put it up. But when you're using someone else's facilities, there's more that you have to do. So I'm going to kind of walk through the process that I use to find the site that we're trying to get and talk about some of the different things that not many people know about because you can't look this information up. There's the Repeater Builder website. They have a couple sample contracts from different cell tower providers that, tell you like all the rules you'll have to abide by if you're putting up a site on a public cell tower. But that only covers, the inside of the building. It tells you how big your box can be and what kind of cables you can use and how you have to label everything. That's all it really covers. It doesn't really cover how much stuff is going to cost, what you actually have to buy. So I'm going to try and compile everything together here because I've learned a lot in the past couple of weeks about what it takes to get a tower up. So the first step is going to be finding a site that you want. And you really have to do this first before you can do anything else because you can't just look up cell tower leasing or radio tower for rent. I mean, they don't really make dictionaries or websites to look up this kind of stuff. So it can be really hard to find out who owns a tower and if they're open to leasing it to you. So I found this website. It's called Antenna Search. Oh, what did I just click? It's called Antenna Search. And you enter your location. You can do address, including city or state. So if I do, the tower site we want to use is up on a mountain called Brindley Mountain. And it has a really good coverage area. It's in a really good spot. It's relatively tall. I think the total height would be about 1,400 feet above sea level would be how high it is. So it's a pretty good site. So the way I found it was I entered in a address near it. Now I found out about this cell tower from actually seeing it with my eyes when I was on the mountain. I saw a tower there and I was like, hey, I wonder what's up with that. So I entered this address in, which is close to the tower. It's not the tower's exact address. Oh, wait, I forgot that didn't work. I actually entered in coordinates from Google Maps. So if we go to, open up a new tab here. If we go on Google Maps and we zoom out, this is the North Alabama area. Let me go to satellite view here. Here's Huntsville and all the surrounding areas. The cell tower site I'm looking at is on Brindley Mountain, which is, let's see, Huntsville here. So we go down 231, down not quite to here. Hang on a second. Okay, here we go. We got to zoom in right here. Okay, you can see it on the map. There's the square. You can see the little triangle from the top. You can see the guy wires. So that's the overhead view. So what I just did was I copied the coordinates. You can just right click, copy, and go over to Antenna Search and paste them in. So when I pasted them in, it gives you all the towers in a certain radius. So here's 231. And if we zoom in, this map is not a normal map. You actually have to click the plus button over here. You can see here's the road that it's really close to. And there's a blue dot here for the actual tower. And when you click it, it highlights the tower you click. So if I click like this one down here, it's owned by Nextel or Sprint. Click this red one over here, Deltacom Communications. It tells you who owns it. This one's owned by American Tower Corporation. So if we click this one right here, it's owned by Pinnacle Towers Acquisition. So if we click that to get more information, it loads up the satellite view, and there you can see another view of the tower. There's the road that it's on. There's the street, and there's a little blue dot there. And now we can see who owns it. So it's owned by Crown Castle, which is a cell tower provider. Here's the contact info for the guy who is like the most close to that tower, I suppose. And then you can also come over here and see ownership info, Pinnacle Towers Acquisition, and then their number. That gives you all their info for calling the main company and not just individual. Here's your FCC registration number. That's pretty important because when you call up the owners, they're going to say, oh, what tower is it? Because often these companies own, 20,000 towers across America, and they don't know what tower it is So you give them this number and they can look it up. It also has longitude, latitude, tells you the date it was put up, the ground elevation, the actual height, and the overall height, and the actual address of the tower itself, as well as a log here with all the different information pertaining to it. So now that we know the tower, you may say, okay, let's go to their website. Well, you go to their website and this is what you get. And this is what you get for pretty much all of the tower provider companies. It's not really specific. It's like, oh, Life Connects us, what possibilities? And it's pretty much, a lot of them, just the website only exists for hiring people to work for them. I've noticed this with a lot of the websites. It's all about careers and getting into the tower climbing business or whatever. It's not really geared towards consumers trying to, get information on it. So you can scroll through all this stuff. This is not helpful for someone trying to actually rent the space. So you can contact us, you can get this, you can go through their email thing. What I just did was I called the number on here and spoke to Don himself and told him what I wanted to do. And then he put me through to the sales guy. And I talked to the sales guy and we discussed what that tower was. And that tower is actually got nobody else on it right now. So I would be the only customer. And that will be important because getting a site on a crowded tower, so that the prices for it's basically like leasing an apartment or a house or something. You're leasing space on the tower and they're going to charge you a certain amount of money based on the demand. So because this tower is completely empty, nobody else on it, it's just sitting there, they are very likely to give you a good deal, good monthly rate on the tower site. For a ham tower like this, I've been told the price shouldn't be above $300 a month. $300 a month would be like the really high, and that you shouldn't pay more than that. They also, on the phone, told me they get a lot of people trying to undercut them and not undercut, but not really want to pay anything for it. So if you tell them, oh yeah, I want to give you $20 a month, they might just completely ignore you. So for a site like this, you're going to expect to pay at least probably 100, 150 a month, which for what it is and its location, I think is pretty reasonable. Like I said, there's nobody else on this site. So you can kind of use that as leverage when talking to them and say, hey, would you guys rather have nobody there at all or somebody who's at least paying something? So if they try and tell you, because they gave me the whole role, oh, well, we are always signing deals with big cell companies for millions of dollars and everything. And, they told me all that. I was like, yeah, I understand. But that place is sitting there empty. So if you can get a situation like that, is the best. But if you're going somewhere else and there's another site, they're probably going to charge a little bit more, especially if it's, at the very top of a mountain and it's like the highest antenna and there's a lot of demand, you'll probably have to pay a bit more. If you're a club doing it, that's no problem. If you're an individual, it can be a lot more difficult. And I'm doing this as an individual. So you don't have the whole nonprofit LLC. You don't have the any real official name for yourself. Because when you call them on the phone and you tell them I want a spot, first thing they ask you is, okay, and what business is this? They always ask you what your company is called. And you have to tell them, no, I'm an individual. So the fact that it's empty, the fact that no one is there, and I reassured them that I was not trying to get this space for $10 a month. They have actually put me through to somebody. So that's an important aspect of this for doing ham radio, because these people, like I said, they deal with big money, high dollar projects all the time. Because like the guy asked me, he's like, are you looking to set up your own cellular network? Like that's the scale that these people operate on. So when you come in with your little walkie-talkie system, they're like, oh, what is this little thing? We don't care about this. So you have to word what you say carefully. I didn't even tell them that it was amateur radio. You don't even need to tell them that it's ham radio up until the last possible minute. You can tell them your antenna. You can tell them the frequency you'll be on, tell them, oh, it's VHF, between this area and this area. You can tell them what hardware you're going to use. But if you can avoid saying amateur radio, it might help you your case a little bit more, because they're not going to, hams don't have the best reputation for spending a lot of money. So these people who run these sites, and they're the sales guys, they know that because they've been in the business.
We're cheap. So. Just say it. We're cheap.
Yeah, cheap. So just keep that in mind. Word what you say carefully. Know the situation beforehand so you can leverage it if you need to and say, well, you guys aren't making any money. So there's that. There's your tower site. That's the one we're going to use. And that's what I'm using as the example for everything else. So like I said, you can go to their website. It's usually not very helpful. You want to call the number that's actually listed here. And sometimes physically at the tower site, they'll have this number posted as well. So you can call that number. The next thing I did before I went any further was I used the Radio Mobile Online coverage map tool that we actually was displayed in a previous TechNet, and the guy who did it did a pretty good job telling us how to do it. I forget his name. I think it was either Chris or Rick. I can't remember who exactly did the presentation, but he did a good job. So I came in here. I went to new site.
It was Dallas.
Was it Dallas? Yeah, I think it was Dallas actually. Came in here, I clicked new site, and I dragged the little marker. I found where I wanted to place it on the map, Then I went to my sites. So I have it here. I have it Hamner Tower because that's the name of the road that it's at. I put in the elevation, coordinates. That's all you really need. Menu. Then I went to new coverage. Click the button. Did nothing happen? Why did nothing happen? New coverage. All right, that's not working. I don't know why. Can I go to my coverages? View this coverage. What? Is it broken? Nothing happens when I click it. It was working earlier. Oh, now I can't click my coverage. All the buttons are broke. Oh, wait, no, that button works. What happened? Oh, come on. I was trying to demonstrate.
When I have trouble with websites, sometimes what you got to do is clear your website history, clear your browser history.
Oh, there it goes.
I
think I just had to.
Want to hear something messed up, dude? That same thing happens to me all the time.
Yeah, that's what I've seen a number of times. Clear the website history. There's some crap in the website history which keeps that from working.
I don't know. We're going to talk about that here soon. Ian's got some tips on that. But I went to new coverage. I just put in the info. My antenna is 8.1 dB gain. The antenna is 55 meters above the ground. That's about where it would be. Mobile antenna. So this is your receiving antenna. We already know about that. Usually these have a gain of about 6 dB and not 2. You can just type in your description, your frequency, TX power. I usually like to set this to like 1500 watts or, whatever I want to do. By default, it's set to 20. And then you have all your loss of your feed line, everything. And you come down here and set what your signal margins and everything are. And when you generate it, please work. Okay, so I generated this coverage map. Now, this may be a bit exaggerated, only a little bit though, because that site is the same, only like there's our antenna. And like right over here where my cursor is, there is another tower that is broadcasting a very powerful FM broadcast signal. And I know from experience how well it gets out. It gets out all over. So this, I believe, was with 350 watts output with an 8.1 dB antenna, and that's at 1,400 feet on a mountain that overlooks the Huntsville area. So, I mean, it is a very good location, but this tool really confirmed, you can do your line of sight calculations, you can do all that, but without the topography calculation, you really don't know truly how it's going to work. Like there's mountains over here, lines of mountains, and you can see that it really breaks up the signal. In some areas, you don't get any reception at all. So this came in really handy because I was able to see how well it would work with high output power and a mobile antenna. That's a pretty good footprint. That is a huge footprint. And I know for a fact that these other repeaters that are on Monte Sano, which are located like right around here, I don't know what's wrong with them or what's different, but their signal does not get out, not even barely to like Decatur or Athens on the map here. They stop working like right around in between Athens and Rogersville, and that's with a mobile antenna. So I don't know. Hopefully my system would be different. I don't know. I'm going to crank up the power pretty high on that thing and make sure everything is maxed out. But something ain't right with their systems over here because this calculation shows that it should be going a lot further than it is. So calculation could be off a little bit, but I think that it's something up with their systems. They have weird problems with signal too. Like you'll be transmitting and they'll just like drop out if you're even, I don't know what's up with their system. So
well, you got that range of mountains like between Huntsville and Atlanta, and they're pretty steep.
Yeah, over here there is.
Yeah, but I'm talking about east too.
Over this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's no mountains. There's no mountains like over here. Like this whole area in the solid green is there's no mountains. As you go lower, you start getting more hills.
Yeah.
But everything around here, I wonder if this signal would reach Ian's cabin. I don't know exactly where his is, but it's around here somewhere, and that's what the coverage looks like. You may be able to get it. I mean,
well, I mean, it looks like it goes all the way to Atlanta.
It almost does. Yeah. Let's see, where's Atlanta?
I mean, I'm directly north of Atlanta.
You're just about over there.
Right here.
There it is. Yep. That's Atlanta right there.
Do you see where? Yeah, I can see Dahlonega up there, but we're 2 hours north of Atlanta, which actually might be better depending on where we're at.
400 to Dahlonega.
Yeah, keep on going.
So you're like,
see Dahlonega right there.
Right there.
Yeah. Just go right on. Go straight north from there. And that crossroad right there is in downtown Blairsville, that next one up, right there where those 4 roads come together.
This one here? Up.
Yeah.
That one there?
I'm just north of that.
Okay, so if you're just north of that.
Yeah, I'm right in that area right there.
So the mountain, if your backside.
It looks like that is some really rugged mountains right there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's causing problems. Well, I don't know if you have a good enough antenna.
It's one of those things where I could go to the top of a mountain. I know I could get to.
I just don't think that you're going to be able to get from Huntsville to Atlanta, despite that thing. But who knows?
I
2 meters is healing.
In Atlanta, I doubt it.
Every 2 meter pair in Atlanta is huge.
Oh yeah, you got to worry about that.
Oh, I can imagine.
Well, I don't know. This may be greatly exaggerated. I hope it's not, because this is pretty impressive, and I put in all the details correctly. So,
well, I'm gonna tell you, if that's what it does, I'm impressed.
Go back to your list of details and let me see what you put in for height.
Oh, my sites. Okay, yeah. So we are up at 381 meters for the elevation. Wait, is that right?
That's
that explains
pretty high. That's 1,000 feet.
Yeah, so the base of the tower is at 1,200 feet, and then the antenna would be up another 200 feet. So 1,400 feet.
The software calculates above sea level part. You're trying to tell the software that you're on a 381 foot tower.
No, it says meters.
381 meter tower.
No, see, no, look. This says elevation in meters, and then when you go to do a new coverage, it asks you separately there the actual antenna height meters above ground. So that's where I put in 55 meters and arrive at a total height of whatever the total height is. But the site, you put in the ground height. So this is adding the ground height, which is 380 meters, plus the 55 meters. So that you do them separately.
Ground height that, because I've never had to give it that. It's always calculated that from the topography part where it looks at the GPS data.
Well, I don't know why it asked me then. It says elevation in meters, 381 feet. That's not the antenna height, because it asks you that when you do a new calculation.
It should be able to see what the ground height is, your ground altitude, which is, whatever that's going to be known by your latitude and longitude.
That's what I would think. What is this? Oh, I don't know then. I think it adds it though. If we go to elevation. Well, hold on. If we add let me get my calculator. So if we do 381 meters plus 55 meters, we get 436 meters. Now, if we go 436 meters to feet, that adds up. That's the height right there. 1430.
Yeah.
So that adds up to the height of the tower listed over here in antenna search. 1437 overall height. That adds up. So that's correct. So this thing where in my coverages, that's what the correct altitude.
The question is, did it calculate that 300 and something meters, or did you have to tell it that? Because I've never had to tell it.
I had to put that in. If I say new site and I just put this somewhere, elevate, it asks me the elevation right here. Now it fills it in.
It's telling you the elevation.
It's
Correct.
filling it in.
So I didn't have to change that when I made it. It already had it filled in. So that
Right.
380
Okay.
meters.
That's what I was getting at. It goes by the GPS coordinates that you gave it, and it goes to a topography map someplace. It gets that data someplace out of the internet.
Yeah.
So that's what I was getting at. You didn't put in that number. It found that number.
Okay. Yeah. So then that height that it's calculating it from is accurate to what it would really be. So, I mean, this looks pretty insane to me, given the performance of the other repeaters in the area, which are also on mountains. I mean, we have a repeater that's the ID comes on and it says 1,700 feet high. Like it's set 1,700 feet, but it does not have anywhere close to this level of coverage. So something is a little fishy, but at the same time,
realistically, you're not going to either.
I that's what I'm thinking. But at the same time, I know where that broadcast antenna is, and they are running 100,000 watts. That's what their output is. And that's a lot more than 1,500 watts, even, with the max you can do with a repeater. Yeah. But even with all those watts, the signal would still, I would think it wouldn't be a whole lot different than, you can't use power to overcome the laws of physics. So the fact that site performs as well as it does, because I've been all the way out here to Florence and all the way out here to Scottsboro and further, actually past here. I've been out to, where is it? I've been out to Section. I'm not exactly sure where on map. It's a pretty small area, but I've been over here before, and I've been down to Coleman as well. And I know that the signal from that broadcast station covers those areas full signal, no problem whatsoever. So I'm thinking that location at that height, maybe these guys just aren't set up correctly. It's kind of doubtful because they seem to know what they're doing, but I don't know. That I feel like the sites that we have now should have a much better coverage than they do. Like even parked over here in Madison, with a mobile antenna on your roof, you will see the S meter flickering from the repeater. I mean, the repeater's like over here at that distance and at that height, you shouldn't be having that signal problems. I wouldn't think. There's no hills. So I don't know. We'll see what the actual performance is, but I do lean on believing this to some degree. I also did another coverage. I did handheld indoor. So I asked my buddy, what decibel signal, what signal strength do you need where the signal would be full scale on a small antenna inside a house? And he said you need 60 dB. So I put that into the green is where you have 60 dB, and then yellow is below 60 dB. And this apparently is what it says the coverage would be with 350 watts output. Yeah. So if you're in a house in anywhere in the green and you have a handheld, you would have a full scale signal, supposedly, or not full scale, but no noise. It wouldn't be a weak signal. And then if we bump it up to,
find it hard to get 350 watts out of a repeater, even with an amplifier.
Oh,
is you'll end up with a 6 or an 8 can set of duplexers.
That's right.
Whatever it takes.
It takes up a lot of room.
Whatever it takes, we're going to get, and I did this calculation with 1,500 watts. My goal is to get 1,500 watts out of the system, like to the antenna.
Well, what that's going to force you to do is split sites, where you can have 1,500 watts to transmit at one site and a receiver elsewhere. Not at that site.
I don't know.
You'd have to have a real expensive set of duplexers to handle that kind of power. Well, usually what happens with the repeater will put out maybe 50, 100 watts, and then you develop your gain in the antenna. Mm-hmm. FM broadcast stations work this way too.
Yep.
They don't actually put out 100,000 watts. They may have a transmitter that does 20 or 25,000, and then the rest of your gain is made up in the antenna. And that's what you're going to do with this too.
Well, we're going to do whatever it takes to get the maximum possible output from this thing.
And
whatever duplexers
you're going to have here is you're going to run into getting the thing coordinated. You're going to have to deal with frequencies in Tennessee and in Georgia.
Well,
So-
we've already done that. There's nothing in Tennessee. We have nothing to worry about in Tennessee. And over here, there's nothing either. So we're gonna be fine. We found a frequency. The main thing we have to worry about is in Huntsville, because that's where the mass collection of repeaters is.
Yeah.
And we found a frequency for that. Everywhere else is so sparsely populated. I mean, we've already checked it. There's nothing on our frequency. So
Yeah.
thankfully that I think is going to work out okay. But we're going to try and just push this thing to the max. I mean, whatever it takes to get 1500 watts out, we're going to do.
You got to remember, the higher you turn the power, the more descents you're going to have in your receiver.
Yep.
So that's the other side of that.
Yep. So we're going to have to figure out a balance that works the best, because I ain't happy with no 50 watts on my repeater. We got to.
And I can tell you that duplexers are expensive now.
Oh yeah.
You know, they're still getting reception from Voyager.
Yep.
And
because they're out and there's nothing in between them.
yes, there's
Putting
nothing
out like
in between them, and it's way past Pluto, and it's like it's I think it's down to around 4 or 5 watts. Started at 7.
Yep. Line of sight.
That's
Line of sight will
QRP DX.
But it
line
doesn't
of
do
sight.
you any good if you're doing 1500 watts and you're talking to a 50-watt mobile, and he's got 6, and actually most cars only have 3 dB a gain on a 5/8 wave antenna.
Well,
you'll have an alligator, all mouth and no ears.
Yeah, that's whatever. I don't care.
What kind of equipment are you considering getting? What kind of repeater?
We're going to go through that in a minute. We're going through that in a minute. So at the start, it's not going to be 1500 watts. It's going to be probably a lot less. But the end goal is to get something that's just ridiculously high power and maxed out everything. So anyway, this segment, I guess, is about showing this map and everything. This was just kind of to illustrate the tool here. The next step, once you have your site in mind and your coverage figured out, we are going to go to eBay. And because this repeater is going to start out being built on not so much of a budget, but just like, because it's an experimental thing and it's the first time we're doing it, we don't want to buy a big fancy system just yet. We're going to do everything we can to make it super powerful, but we're also trying to save money where we can. So there's a couple ways to do this. You can buy a repeater controller. And eBay is where we're going to do most of this. You can buy, sorry, not a repeater controller. I mean a repeater module. You can get whole repeater systems. Here you go, VHF repeater for $400, $420. Here's one here. This is an all-in-one system. So this has your transmitter and your receiver built in, as well as the controller built into the system. What we're going to be actually doing for ours is something sort of like this. Now, this is $795, but that's not what we're going to pay total. We're going to take 2 Motorola radios, and we're going to link them together with a special cable and then plug in a repeater box. So we're going to look at Motorola. I think we were looking at CM300s is what we were looking at. So this is what's super cool. You can get, here we go, look at this. 2 CM300s for $130. As long as one transmits and one receives, we're good to go. These radios are being phased out of use. That's why you can get so many for super cheap. You could buy 2 of them or buy one of them for $65 a piece. This is, I believe, a 45 or a 50 watt radio. There's a couple other similar models, which there's like the CM50, 150, CM100. There's a couple of different models, but I think CM300 is what we were looking at. So you pick up 2 of these little cheap radios, and hopefully you get some that work. I mean, obviously, if the seller says they work, then they work. You don't even need mic cables. You don't need anything. You just need 2 matching radios. And see these types, this little plug here? This is an ignition sense plug. This is what we're looking at. Duplex repeater interface cable for Motorola CM300s is in there. So you get this little plug, and now you have a repeater. It turns, did you say beans? Okay. You plug one radio into the other. You have your TX and your RX, and when one key's up, the other listens, and when when one of them listens, the other key's up, and whenever a signal is present, it keys the other one up and transmits out on whatever frequency. So you get this little cable for $10. This is not the exact cable I think I would get, because I would get the one that splits into 3 plugs, because we are going to need a repeater controller. Now you can get something called a RIC, which is this little box that is essentially a bare bones repeater controller. It adds a Morse code identifier and a remote shutoff, I believe, is all it does. It's very basic. So you can get that for $25. But because we want our system to be really awesome and cool and fun, we're going to get one of these things. You always hear the automated voice on the repeater that says, the time is 1 p.m. You know, it has the voice that goes off. That's what this little box is. It's the RC210. They always sound the same because it's always the same box. These things used to be like $500 or $1,000 a piece because they were so good. Now the prices dropped down quite a lot to like $250 because they're getting older and everybody's going digital now. These are commercial grade systems, so they're no longer being used for commercial. That's why the price has gone down so much. So that's just the board, but you can see all the features we have here. Flexible IDs, you can program in a Morse code or a voice ID or a sound file. Flexible courtesy tones, you can basically do whatever you want. If you want a custom file, a DTMF tone, whatever. Here's our little file sample. You'll probably won't be able to hear it because I can't share sound because I'm on Linux, but it just has the voice that says, good afternoon. Now that's All-Star. All-Star says good afternoon. This is the one that just the same voice you've always heard on like every repeater ever. That's what this box does. You can also have a built-in DVR. So you hit DTMF1 or whatever, and it starts recording from the RF side. So that's really useful. Remote base operations, you plug in a computer and now you can control a repeater over the internet, change settings, do whatever. Macros of all kinds. So you can set a DTMF sequence to do whatever. There's just all kinds of stuff. It has a clock, the scheduler, tail messages. Those are cool. You can even plug in a Davis Instruments weather station and have it read out the information to you, which is just amazing. So it has just all kind of crazy gadgets and stuff it can do. And I'm super excited about getting one of these because we're going to put a lot of funny stuff on here. I want to get on Fiverr, or if Ian wants to do it, you can make like radio station jingles. So we were thinking of having the hourly identification be like when you're listening to 925 Fox News and it comes on, it says 925 Fox News. It has the whole little sound effects that play. We want to do that. We think that'd be really funny. So you can do that with this controller. So you need that, and you need the cable, and you need the radio. The next thing you're going to need is duplexers, like we were talking about. Yeah. Now, Telewave makes duplexers. There's another brand. It's like Cellwave, I think, is what we were looking at.
Cellwave, there's TXRX.
Yeah, I think Cellwave is what we're looking at. I don't know what the top of the line is yet. Something probably around this price range, probably even more. For like a really, really good, like top of the line, you're going to spend like $5,000 probably.
Yeah, but you see that's like only a 350 watt and it's 6 cavities, and you're wanting to do 1,500 watts. Boy, that's a lot of cavities.
Okay, yeah, so we'll have a gigantic stack of cavities then, the size of a bus, and
yeah, I don't think that's realistic to
now, are you going to build a building at the bottom of the tower? Because if you're going to use their building, you're barking up. You're going to be using all their real estate on inside the building.
Yeah.
Well, like I said,
limit you as to how much space you can use.
Like I said, we're going to figure out. I don't know the specifics yet. Probably something like this. That's for UHF. We're going to do whatever it takes. So. Yeah, I don't want to hear all the negativity, okay? Because we're going to make a repeater that just blows the door off everybody. So you need to come here. You can get them direct from here, or you can go to go straight to their website. Base station duplexers. This is not Telewave. This is for UHF.
Sinclair. They make
Sinclair.
Too, yeah.
I think they make good stuff. Here we go. Here's straight from Telewave. Here's all their different ones you can buy. So eBay is where I was pointed to when I was talking to somebody about duplexers. They're like, go to eBay. So I mean, you can find what you want and tune it up and everything.
Sure.
But there you go. And if you want power, Henry full duty. Henry makes extremely, these things here. I don't know if how much this one puts out, but apparently they make good stuff, and it can do some of it can do continuous duty. This is just the brand. They don't make like normal talking around amplifiers. They make full duty stuff. I believe most of their, like, it's not like this thing. It's not like buying a little desktop amplifier. It's made for repeaters.
Yeah, this isn't your typical foot warmer that goes in your car.
130. That's 130. No, see, these are not for that. These don't even have the proper circuitry to like detect a. You actually have to wire it up to control it. It's not just like your standard amp, is what I'm trying to say. Here we go. 340 watt VHF repeater amplifier, full duty, continuous duty. That is what you need right there. And it's still expensive because it's continuous duty and it's VHF. So that's what you got to get right there, is a full duty amplifier to put down the power. You got a couple more on here.
And you want 5 of those so you can get to your full legal limit.
Yeah, or just get one that's 1500 watt. I don't think you get like a combiner. I don't know.
You may not have something like that available. I don't know.
Then we build it from scratch is what we do. So there's the hardware side. Did I have anything else? I don't think I had all that much else. Repeater coordination. So you can coordinate with your local people if you feel like doing that. You don't have to. You're not required to coordinate. You might make a lot of people mad in the process, but as we've noticed before, sometimes we have a bit of a problem trying to get other people to cooperate. So you do not have to coordinate. If you find a frequency that's dead, that's been off the air for a long time, you don't have to get permission or anything. You can just put up a system on that frequency and nobody can do anything about it. As long as you document for 30 days that system has been off the air, then you're good to go. What else is there? I don't think there's much else. Oh yeah, if you're on a tower, this was one thing I still don't have a lot of information on, is you need to probably get insurance for any kind of accident. The tower company is going to want you to have insurance, and I'm not sure still where exactly you get that. You can't Google this stuff. You look up radio tower insurance and nothing happens. It just gives you job listings for tower climbers. So that's one thing that I'm still looking for information on, but everything else is mostly figured out.
Let me give you a possibility. There is are you familiar with EHAM at all?
Yeah.
Okay. On there, back in their reviews, they list the ARRL and other sources for ham radio equipment insurance. Now, I don't know if this would be a viable option for this, but that's a place to start looking.
Okay, I will. That's good information. Thank you.
Yes, with the ARRL insurance, that will cover your equipment if the tower gets struck by lightning. If it's a club and you declare a club outing to go out to the tower site to do antenna work, I think you get $1 million worth of liability insurance.
Yeah, you're going to want a liability insurance.
So that when somebody slips and falls 300 feet to the ground and goes thud, well,
you don't want
and they go thud because they fall right where all the cables are coming from the tower into the radio shack at the bottom, and they sever all of those with their back. Well, it takes $1 million to repair all that stuff.
Yeah,
and your insurance pays for that. And
you're gonna be hearing from that law firm so and so and so and so for the people.
Morgan and Morgan.
I didn't want to mention a name, but You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're not even.
Well, that's where you have to have Bubba in his backhoe and you bury the evidence out in the pasture.
We got some backhoes around here.
Yeah, well, whatever public company, a proper cell tower company like that, they're gonna.
Yeah, you might be smart to consider forming some type of LLC. If you're going to get this heavy into it, this is more than just a backyard repeater. This is something that you're going to have significant, because if something happens, you may be personally on the hook legally. So you might want to consider forming some type of LLC, a nonprofit type organization, like a club or something of that nature.
Yeah.
Nonprofit.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, if our North Alabama Tech team thing gets big enough, eventually might want to anyway.
Get the tower site providers to be a little more friendly with you.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna get this North Alabama Tech team, if it gets big enough, we would probably want that anyway. So yeah, that is something to consider.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just
but
it's not something that's well documented
and coordinated. They're going to probably tell you can only run so much effective radiated power at so much height and that kind of thing.
You mean with the ARRL coordinators?
Well, that's
well, that's why. That's exactly
I know who your
why
coordinating in Alabama is. I don't have any idea.
I know his name, but that's exactly why we're not going to coordinate with them, because we've already checked our frequencies and we're not stepping on anybody. So here's our problem is that because we do everything so differently. And like we talked about in the previous TechNet with the proper versus legal thing we talked about, these people are not going to be friendly to us anyway. Not the tower people, but the coordinators. So they already have this attitude. As soon as you mention putting up a repeater, they're like, "Oh, you can't do that. There's no open frequencies." They already have this attitude of negativity towards everybody. And our plan and what we can do is just put the system up. We're not invading anybody. So
yeah,
we're not overstepping anybody, and there's no repeaters. I mean, outside the Huntsville area, there's nothing. I mean, it just completely dies.
If you consider putting this on a band other than 2 meters.
Yeah, we considered 220 and 440. 440 we don't want to do because it just doesn't work well around the hills. 220 does not have that as bad, but nobody has 220 equipment. And because we're trying to make something that is like as accessible as possible, we don't want to limit it to a band that nobody has equipment on.
Yeah. Okay. Because that's something they'll ask you.
Yeah, 220 was what I wanted to do before I found the open frequency, because that was the only thing available. There's only one 220 repeater in the entire area. It'd be easy to get a frequency on that. But if you try and tell, the young hams who just got their license, oh, you're going to need to buy this obscure, you can either buy the Baofeng, the Tri-Bander, or you can have nothing. You can have this one model of radio that TYT makes. It's a mono band. Equipment options are just not good enough.
Not good on 220. I know that.
Yeah. So if you already have a bunch of people who do 220, then it's a great idea. Great. But if you're trying to reach as many people as possible, it really just doesn't work.
I don't know. Trying to get a repeater for 220, unless
good luck with that.
A GE Delta. Or the GE Master 2, and then you retune it, make it go to that frequency. That stuff, no one makes it anymore because it's a dead band. On the commercial side of the world, there's not that much stuff that you can buy for a repeater.
I mean, it's even hard to buy a radio for it. We got a 220 repeater down here. It's had to be sent back to the manufacturer a couple of times. It's a recent buy. We got it from Bridgecom, but I'm not sure Bridgecom's making 220 anymore.
Yeah, that's the main problem. Is you can't get equipment for it.
Yeah.
You can get the Tri-Bander and you can get the TYT, and that's it. Yep. You miss out on so much potential hardware when you do that. Handhelds too. Well, yeah, handhelds. You have the Baofeng or nothing.
Yeah.
There's like maybe one Kenwood that does it. Maybe one ICOM. You can get older radios, but those are even more hard to find.
Yeah.
Well, you know, 30 years ago when they took half the 220 band away from us, that's when for whatever reason it made it really hard for equipment to be made. Most of the Japanese folks don't make the 220 stuff, or if they do, they throw it in as an afterthought because it's a band only in America.
That's right.
The Canadians don't get it, I don't think. South America, no. Europe, no. Asia, no. So they, you know, it makes it like tough. They got to make a radio that, in hardware and software, they have to disable it to ship that radio elsewhere.
That's right.
And it's bad enough, like, you know, over in the UK, the 2 meter band is only 2 megahertz wide.
Yeah.
There's a lot of radios that hams take there because if you buy one of theirs, like the Yaesu UK version, and you bring it back to America, it's not just opening it up in software. The skirts on the edges of the band just taper off. They've customized the radio for the UK bandwidth.
I think the 440 band is similar. You've got a situation with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, you can tweak the radio for the band that you want.
But getting a repeater equipment itself, I think that you're going to have to go to a Motorola or a GE. Would you look at what is it called? Repeater Builder?
Yeah, I did extensively when I was thinking about this.
Because there's a whole load of outfits which take GE Master equipment, Master 2 and stuff like that and convert them to ham bands.
Right.
Or you can buy them.
You take the low band VHF and you can make that sucker work. But
yeah.
It's a lot of, they've got step by step in there, but it's a lot of steps.
Yeah. You need to have some experience doing it.
And it's a crystal control radio, which means you got to find somebody that will custom tune your crystal. And that's a dying art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you do those crystals, if you go that route, make sure you get the frequencies correct. Buddies in Texas, he knew what the frequencies were for the repeater, and he sent them to him, and it's upside down. He programmed it as if it was going to be, you know, how you would program your car. You got the 9.4 on transmit, and what you receive on the 3.4.
Yeah.
Well, he had them backwards. Oops.
Oh,
and it's not like you can't take the transmit crystal and put it in the receive hole and the receive crystal and no.
Ew, that don't work.
That doesn't work. They're made differently. They get multiplied differently to get to the right frequency. It was a mess. And that was like $120 worth of And then he did the drastic mistake. He didn't ask me for another set of the little ICOMs, which is the metal can, whatever that holds the crystal. He sent those once he had just done back and had them redo them. If he had not done that, we could have used those on a receiver that was another Motorola radio. But he made a mistake and then he made a second mistake real quick.
Oh boy. I remember the crystal days.
Oh yeah.
We used to have a place here on Crystal Drive.
Yeah.
That was called Jan Crystals, and they used to make all our crystals here. I bet you Rick's probably been inside there. There was actually two different ones. There was Jan Crystals, and I think it was Fort Myers Crystals or whatever the other one was. And they made radio crystals. That's what they did right here in Fort Myers.
Yeah.
And each Radio Shack, when you would go into a Radio Shack, and you would say, look, they would like, what frequencies do you need? And he'd pull out what looks like a little organizer that you keep all your screws in. And he had the little frequencies written on the lid. It was like a box of chocolates. And you could pick which frequencies for the sheriff's department, the fire department, whatever. And Radio Shack back then would pre-order about 5 or 10 of each local frequency and have them sitting in a little box for him.
Yep. Because I bought a scanner out in Shreveport, Louisiana, that same way. I said, I want Shreveport Police Department, Bossier Police Department, and this frequency out on the air base. And it was an 8-channel scanner. So we filled it up with those right out of the store.
Did it have the little red lights going all the way across?
Yeah.
Every time.
LEDs.
Yeah, you had to have that. If you didn't have the little red lights, you didn't know it was working.
Yeah.
But yeah, we even had one of those in our fire station for years. And all we had in there was forestry and EMS. It was just so we could hear what the other guys were doing.
Yeah.
And it sat there scanning those 2 channels for about 10 years.
Oh yeah.
Cat scanners out the wazoo. Everybody had one.
Yep. And the Bearcats, for a time there, the Bearcats and the Radio Shack scanners all took those same little crystals.
Yeah.
It was just a little metal
little can.
Oh, you know what they look like? With a little can with 2 points on the bottom, two contacts.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't miss those days. I like my radio now that I blow 800 channels in.
Yeah.
And I change it at will. I really like that. So.
Yeah. Most of the new repeaters are synthesized now too.
Yeah.
So